Hi everyone, my name is Adrian J. Hobson. I just recently got married, so I'm still making sure that I say my new last name. I'm one of the three gentlemen that's part of the Pause Life, and all three of us decided to make short videos to talk about the importance of getting tested and knowing your status. As you guys are aware, or at least I hope so, June 27th is National HIV Testing Day. It is definitely a day that you can go and get tested. Not saying that you can't go get tested any other day, because there are various organizations and centers within your area where you can get tested at. It's just a day for us to reiterate the importance of knowing your status. Um, so, going along with that, I'll share a little bit of my story. I was diagnosed HIV positive in 2009. Actually, because of my viral load and CD4 count, I was actually diagnosed as having AIDS. And for those of you who don't know the difference, HIV is a virus, and that's when some of your white blood cell warriors, your white blood cells that will protect you, when some of them do not work correctly. And whereas AIDS is when some of your white blood cell warriors have stopped working completely. So there's a simplified difference. So as I stated before, I was diagnosed in 2009, and I actually didn't go in to get tested. I started to notice that I got boils in certain places of my body, under my armpits, on my cheeks, and I had never gotten that before. So I told my mother about it. She said it could just be, you play sports, you're very active, so it could just be a buildup of sweat. And so I didn't think anything about it. I went to the urgent care. They gave me some antibiotics. And one of those antibiotics ended up putting me in the hospital. I ended up getting a rash, a fever. I started to feel faint, etc., etc., etc. So I went to the ER. My aunt took me. And while in the ER, they ran different types of tests to figure out what was wrong with me. And they could not figure out what was wrong with me. So the last test they ran was an HIV test. And they had asked me if I have ever had an HIV test before. And I had had one, but it was some years before 2009. So they gave me my test. I ended up getting out the hospital. I didn't get my results that day. It was a blood test, so it took about 7 to 10 business days. So within that time frame, I called the hospital to see if I can get my results. Now, I need you guys to know you are not. No one is allowed to give you your results over the phone. So I called the hospital, and a nurse actually told me I was negative. That was her mistake. She was not supposed to tell me that over the phone, whether I was negative or positive. So I thought I was negative. I ended up going to a follow-up doctor's appointment with my family physician. It happened to be my birthday. I was working on my birthday. It was my lunch break, and I went to my follow-up doctor's appointment. And so I walked into the office, my usually happy-go-lucky self, sat down, and my doctor came in, and he was like, "You seem very, very happy to have heard the news." And I was like, "What news? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Your status. You've been diagnosed with AIDS." And when I heard that, my mind just went blank. Um, I don't even think I had a real emotional reaction. I've always been that type of person to push things in the back of my head, so that's what I did with this. I went back to work that same day as if nothing ever happened, as if I didn't hear any news, and I didn't tell anybody. The first person I told was my uncle. He was very, very supportive, and then I told my mother. She actually was out of town on vacation, and she had gotten back a few days later, and her and my grandparents went on this vacation, and they went to drop off my grandparents first at their house, and that's where I was at because my uncle lived across the street. Just a little backstory. And so I met her in my grandparents' yard, and we started having a conversation about her vacation, and she noticed that I wasn't the same. No matter how hard I try to hide my emotions, that's one person I can't hide them from. Well, her and my husband. And so um, I looked her in her eyes, and I told her I was diagnosed with AIDS. And during the while those words were coming out my mouth, I started bawling. Tears started running down my eyes, and she started crying as well. But something that I did not expect, because my mother firmly, firmly believes that homosexuality is a sin, and at one point in time, she did relate the two. But she grabbed me in her arms and she said, "We are going to get through this together." At that moment, is when I just felt the most vulnerable ever in life, and that actually brought me and my mother closer together. Um, so the next 3 years were the most trying years of my life. I've been in the hospital a total of 4 times. The third time, I was actually supposed to die. The doctor and the nurse were ready to tell my mother, "Your son's not going to make it." I developed a seizure because of this. It turns out that the HIV medication that I was on was not getting to my brain. And while that was happening, my brain ended up building a barrier around it to where the medication could not get to it. And so, because of that, I started to have seizures. Um, so, I say that to say that, I heard one young person who was like at the age of 16, this was about 2 years ago, and they said, "I'm not worried about catching HIV because I can take one pill and that'll be it," which is not the case. Which is not the case at all. At one point, I was taking 15 medications per day for various things. I went through so many cocktails. I was told that I had one of the most deadliest strands out there. Almost died the third time I was in the hospital. The last time I was in the hospital is was when I was with my husband for our second year. We were still in a relationship, and it was during our second year of our relationship. I mean, we're still in a relationship. We're married now, but you get what I'm saying. At that time, we were just boyfriends. So we were in the apartment, and I had a seizure, and that was the first time I ever had a seizure around him. I've only had like a total of um, probably about two. The first one was at my grandmother's house, um, not when I first got diagnosed, but after that. The second one was in Cleveland. So yeah. So when I had the seizure, I lost my eyesight. I couldn't speak. I couldn't write. And even when I was in the hospital, I did not even know my own husband's name. So imagine you being the husband of someone and you trying to have a conversation with them, and they are not able to not only speak to you, but they don't remember who you are. I was in the hospital for a whole month while in Cleveland. Of course, everyone was worried, all my families and friends. Um, and it was just a very, very emotional time. And as I sat in the hospital bed, I thought about, you know what? As a younger person, before I was diagnosed, I knew things about HIV, but I knew the minimal. I really wasn't worried about it because I was one of those people who said it's not going to happen to me. I'm this. That's no. It's impossible to happen to me. But I'm here to tell you that HIV, excuse me, does not discriminate against color, race, sexual orientation, what you identify as far as gender identity. It does not discriminate against anything. It does not discriminate against age. So I'm here. I'm sorry, AIDS. I mean age. It does not discriminate. So I'm here to tell you today that getting tested is very, very important. The sooner you catch it, if you are positive, the better. I know a lot of people say, you know what, if I don't know, then great, I don't have to deal with it. But for my case, I apparently had that strand for a long period of time. If I would have caught it, I could have avoided seizures. I could have avoided being in the hospital 4 times. I could have avoided all the things that I've been through, the trials and tribulations, the not being able to speak, losing my sight, having a brain surgery. Like all that can be avoided. So on this day, on any day, please, 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 please get tested. Get tested for your friends, get tested for your families, and please spread the word about getting tested. You do not want to see your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your cousin, your uncle, your auntie, or whomever laying in the hospital bed holding on to their last breath. Or you don't want to try to have a conversation with them and they don't even know who you are. So on June 27th, please spread the word. Get tested. Take a friend to get tested with you. Take your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your sexual partners. Get tested and use protection, please. As a African American gay male, HIV is taking over our population like no other. And we really, really need to stop it here. We really need to. So from me to you, I love you all, and I want you to be safe And I want you to take care of yourself. That's mentally, physically, and emotionally, and spiritually. So please, on June 27th, in the days following that, know your status, educate, and that's it. By the way, don't forget, we will be on YouTube for our first live show. That's right, the Men of the Pause Life will be on YouTube. And please follow our blog at thepauselife.com. Please follow our Twitter, which is the same thing, The Pause Life. And I look forward to seeing and talking to you guys soon. Have a great afternoon.